Cunningham is a dear colleague from the United States. He works at Shakeford Community Farm, CSA, Community Supported Agriculture Project, and he will be talking about ox-powered vegetable growing and market gardening. So the floor is all yours.
Yes.
All right, I think we got one that works. I appreciate it. Okay. Klaus introduced me. I'm Kevin Cunningham. I am one of the farmers at Shakeford Community Farm, and I am from California, far northern California. You might as well think Oregon, where we're at. And I'm going to talk about oxen-powered produce. We're a fairly unique farm in that we use oxen, at least in North America. And I think particularly unique because of the techniques we've developed over the years to use oxen, particularly in our intensive vegetable production. So, this works. So, why oxen? As far as size, and a lot of people have spoken to this earlier today, they're really appropriately sized. Bigger than a kind of hand walk behind rototiller, smaller than a tractor. They fit in this really nice kind of medium scale draft power. Kind of the scope of it, at least where I'm at, I live in a very strong dairy producing region. The calves are actually really easy for me to find. They're relatively cheap. And then I'll get into it, but one of the scope reasons that we use it is the oxen manure, the oxen poop equals our fertilizer. Kind of the score as far as what oxen score up on is it's a much less upfront cost than a conventional tractor, and I think they get an extra bonus because they have a lower carbon footprint. So, talk about size. And so my oxen weigh generally close to about 2,000 pounds. I did put the kilograms in there. Sorry about that. I'll stick with my pounds. For about 4,000 pounds per team. I looked up the weight of. We actually do use a tractor on our farm, and I looked at the weight, and it's around 12,000 pounds. So you kind of, as far as comparison, if I was to use our tractor in our garden, it's about 3 times the amount of weight on the soil. Scope. Our calves, like I said, they're easy and cheap to obtain. And at least in our area, the dairy breeds tend to be the easiest. So this is actually me holding one of our future team members right there. And once again, there's a group of calves. And the middle two actually are becoming one of my one of my main teams. They are now probably about 3 years old. So one of the reasons that we do our oxen-powered produce on the farm is because of the fertility benefits. Even though I live in a very mild temperate climate, I get to graze 365 days a year. We grow vegetables all year round. I don't get harsh winters. I still put my oxen in a barn during the wintertime. It does help with soil compaction because my soils get really wet. But the other main reason for it, or actually one of the other 2 main reasons, is our compost. So you can see me there standing in front of a year's worth of ox poop. We use locally produced sawdust from our sawmills in our area, and then as well as local hay. Mix that in through the oxen, and then that's what we use to grow our vegetables during the season. So, as far as particularly with our vegetable production, I want to talk a little bit about some of the tools that we use to do this. And these are all modern, new made tools, slightly different than some of the traditional tools. So there's a group of tools that I have for our all-in-one, which was kind of a multi-tool system that we got early on. And we've done some modifications and changes on it, but that's pretty much an arsenal that I can do all of my vegetable production with that set. So one of the things we have changed too is, you can see I've done switched from a kind of handled system to more of a wheeled system. It allows me to work solo as opposed to working with another individual, and has increases our efficiency a little bit. So this is a tool cart that I've actually manufactured myself. I'm an amateur welder, but even at my amateur welding skills, I'm able to kind of build my own tools that we use in the garden. So we're using a disc killer to maintain our permanent beds here. And these are more pictures of us using the disc killer. This is probably our main tool. We don't do a traditional plow system, so you can see we maintain these permanent beds in rows, and I use the disc killer just to kind of maintain the pathways and bring those permanent beds back up. It's kind of our main. This is a picture of the handled version, so this is the one that we would use more like a traditional plow with somebody walking behind on that disc killer, which was really great, but it did require an extra person, so I developed the other one so I could do it by myself. So one of the other tools that we use very regularly, I call the ripper, and this is kind of a Danish S-tine, and that kind of goes on top of the bed and uses a deep tillage without inverting soil profile, so we're able to kind of mitigate issues with plowing, and it kind of mimics like what a broad fork or kind of a forking tool would do in a more hand-based vegetable production system. So you can see a couple more pictures of the ripper there. And the oxen are doing their favorite thing, outstanding in the field. One of the other things that we utilize quite a bit with the oxen is cultivation. So most of everything that we grow is either on a single or double row spacing, and with our tool system, we're able to plant to a single and double rows. And here you can see these are a couple of women who are doing the cultivation that we have. I have celery planted, and then onions in the foreground, and there's more onions on the other side. And those are all done at a double row, and so we're using the double row cultivator for that. So this is the how that cultivator works. You can kind of see in the middle, I have basically our marking rake, so that marks the rows, and then up above it is the same rake on the same with the same holes across it, but with the corresponding removal, so that we use the top one once the plants are planted, and we use that for cultivation. And anybody who has hoed rows knows that as soon as I did this, and it took us 15 minutes to cultivate an entire block of vegetables, it was like bells went off. This was a huge time saver in our intensive vegetable production system. So the other thing that we use a lot in the garden, like I said, is for fertility production. So we have what we affectionately call the ox box. And this is probably one of the most traditional things that we use. It's a kind of a two-wheeled cart that we use to bring all of our compost that we produce outside of the garden into the garden. So I do use the tractor mainly for compost production. So the loader allows us to turn and make our compost and then I use the tractor to load the ox box, and then we correspondingly take that out into the field and disperse that amongst the beds. So, and here is a demonstration. One of the things that I find that's really versatile with oxen is the being able to work in tight spaces. So, while, you know, sometimes we're very intensively producing, so I'll have a bed that finishes early in between other beds of producing vegetables, and with my pair of oxen, I can go in and replant and rework a bed. Correspondingly here, you know, you see I've got summer squash, zucchinis planted in alternating rows, and I can do multiple crops of, say, lettuce in between. And we're using the ox box there to put some fresh compost down on a bed that's going to be turned over and replanted very soon. I would never be able to do that kind of versatility with a tractor. I do use some other tools. I've modified some things. Here is a little mini disc that's designed to go behind an ATV, and we're using this to take down some cucumbers. So, oxen for the win. They're biological solutions to biological problems, and they can do things that technology cannot do. I don't think I have it. And then cattle can save the planet. Oxen can be a big part of strong, healthy grasslands, sequestering carbon, mitigating climate change, and I think draft cattle can be a big part of that future.
Thank you very much. What a great example of what can be done in the 21st century, even in so-called highly industrialized countries like the US. So I'm sure there are questions in the audience. So the floor is open.
Thank you. I have 2 points. I appreciate the new tools which you possibly have generated yourself or planned. First is about the compost which you compiled for a whole year as per the picture. For a whole year, you just stored it, not used it during that year, number one. And not using compost, piling it like that is often leading to higher methane production. That is the present idea. Secondly, with less intensive cultivation, because there is a path for bullocks to move, and there is reduction in overall production which comes by intensive. Is it okay for you or some idea?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good points. So yeah, I said a year. Really, it's definitely less than a year. So I probably put the oxen into the barn at November, December. They'll be in the barn for 3 to 4 months. So it doesn't necessarily be over that whole course of the year. So it's basically during the peak of our winter, and we'll collect, and I'll turn it a couple of times, and then that will then go out. So it's not necessarily sitting for an entire year. It's basically produced in the winter time and then used in the springtime. It's super valuable to us, so I don't necessarily want it sitting around and then leaching or doing anything like that. So, and then kind of to the second point, one of the huge benefits that we found in our systems is the fact that we have permanent beds and the oxen are walking directly in the paths. I have our yoke set up so that they walk on the paths, and there's never any compaction on the bed, and we've noticed a huge increase in kind of the tilth and softness of our soil because we're never actually compacting that soil.
When you sell your vegetables, do you sell them as Oxen produced and organic? Do you tell the consumers? And can you tell us also about the price? Is this competitive compared to industrial produced vegetable?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so it's certainly one of the things that I actually thought about putting into the presentation because that actually is a big part of it. They are charismatic megafauna. People love to see them. And we use it in our marketing on social media, and locally I do school tours, and people love it. There's no official certification yet for oxen-powered produce. Maybe there will be in the future. So that's not something that we do. And while we're not certified organic, that's certainly our ethic and the way we produce everything. And it helps we sell everything within our local community. We don't export any of our produce. So I think it does help. Certain there is a marketing component that is really important as well.
Thank you for your presentation. Have you set up your farm in dimensions that are oxen-based? Like how long are your rows, or you mentioned how wide they are?
Yeah, so the width is kind of the main thing, and I actually designed my yoke. My yoke is actually a little bit wider than a lot of kind of standard pulling yokes to accommodate a bed's width in between, and that allows me kind of above and beyond like horse-drawn implements that are usually a single row. I can do a double row, so I can actually double the increase in production. As far as length, I wish everything was a little more standard on our farm. They do tend to be varying lengths, but I do find, it's about 200 feet works really good. If it's shorter, I'm doing a lot more turns. So that works pretty good. But yeah, our farm is definitely set up in the vegetable realm around the oxen. When we transitioned from using a tractor to using the oxen, it kind of happened naturally that everything kind of laid out in dimensions that fit their body widths.
All right, thank you. So, giving it another try, Mr. Din, are you there?